So if we haven't met, I was with you in October for the first time. My name is Elizabeth Pedersen. I'm the outreach coordinator here at Lord of Life, and I am excited to be back with you today. So the last time I stood in front of you, I posed the question, what happens if we start seeing the women? And so at the risk of developing a reputation for being the one who always talks about the women, I want to take us in the same direction today because I think it matters. So as I thought about the Christmas story and what about it I wanted to focus on with you all, I forgot that I have this and I don't need this. There we go. Can you hear me now? Yeah? All right. So as I thought about the Christmas story and what I wanted to focus on with you all today, I kept coming back to Mary and what her experience of pregnancy and childbirth was like. We don't learn a lot of details about like the nitty-gritty of her pregnancy and childbirth, right? Other than she was pregnant and she gave birth. And I think we can all agree that it was way more complicated than that, right? Yes. So throughout the Bible, there are many accounts of children being born. And for the most part, really, the words that we see are, she conceived and bore a son. And for others that include more details about the pregnancy journey, the journey to motherhood, it's always a story of struggle or heartbreak or overcoming the impossible or of grief. I think that we know these women's stories, right? Can you name any of them? Whose stories do we know? Sarah. Yep, Sarah and Abraham. Hannah. Yes, Hannah. What am I hearing? Elizabeth. Yes. Anyone else? Mary. Some of them, you named most of them here, but we have Sarah, who gave birth when she was 90 years old to Isaac, and she laughed about that, right? We have Rebecca, who was married to Isaac, and they had trouble getting pregnant. Isaac prayed to God. And when she did become pregnant, she had a hard pregnancy. She talked about the baby struggling in her womb. And God talked to her and said, well, it's twins and they're fighting and good luck, right? And then there's Rachel, who was married to Jacob, one of Rebecca's sons, and she too struggled. And then Hannah, as you mentioned, she gave birth to Samuel, and that was quite a journey, and we'll hear more about that in a bit. And of course, Elizabeth and Mary, who we've already heard a bit about this season. So last week, I want to say this too. I find it interesting, and I don't know, listen, I didn't write the Bible, so I don't know. But I find it interesting that Sarah, Rebecca, and Rachel are all related, not by blood, but Sarah gave birth to Isaac, who then married Rebecca, and they gave birth to Jacob and Esau, and Jacob, who married Rachel. And so that's 3 generations of women who struggled with pregnancy. And I don't know if that I don't know if that means anything, but I find it interesting because I think we know that it's more common than we all talk about, right? So last week, Pastor Caitlin talked about Hannah's prayer when she was teaching about Mary's Magnificat. Part of the Magnificat is, Hannah's prayer is referenced in Mary's Magnificat. And because I personally love Hannah's story and I think it is so real and honest, I want to go back to her story and read the beginning of it. So Hannah's story comes in 1 Samuel, and it's kind of long, so here we go. There was a certain man of Ramathaim, a Zuphite, from the hill country of Ephraim, whose name was Elkanah, son of Jeroham, son of Elihu, son of Tohu, son of Zuph, an Ephraimite. He had 2 wives. The name of the one was Hannah, and the name of the other was Peninnah. Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. Now this man used to go up year by year from his town to worship and to sacrifice to the Lord of hosts at Shiloh, where the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were priests of the Lord. On the day when Elkanah sacrificed, he would give portions to his wife Peninnah and to all her sons and daughters. But to Hannah he gave a double portion, because he loved her, though the Lord had closed her womb. Her rival, Peninnah, used to provoke her severely, to irritate her, because the Lord had closed her womb. So it went on year by year. As often as she went up to the house of the Lord, she, Peninnah, used to provoke Hannah. Therefore Hannah wept and would not eat. Her husband Elkanah said to her, "Hannah, why do you weep? Why do you not eat? Why is your heart sad? Am I not more to you than 10 sons?" After they had eaten and drunk at Shiloh, Hannah rose and presented herself before the Lord. Now Eli the priest was sitting on the seat beside the doorpost of the temple of the Lord. She was deeply distressed and prayed to the Lord and wept bitterly. She made this vow: "O Lord of hosts, if only you will look on the misery of your servant and remember me, and not forget your servant, but will give to your servant a male child, then I will set him before you as a Nazirite until the day of his death. He shall drink neither wine nor intoxicants, and no razor shall touch his head." As she continued praying before the Lord, Eli observed her mouth. Hannah was praying silently, only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Therefore Eli thought she was drunk. So Eli said to her, "How long will you make a drunken spectacle of yourself? Put away your wine." That's funny. But Hannah answered, "No, my lord, I am a woman deeply troubled. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but I have been pouring out my soul before the Lord. Do not regard your servant as a worthless woman, for I have been speaking out of my great anxiety and vexation all this time." Then Eli answered, "Go in peace. The God of Israel grant the petition you have made to him." And she said, "Let your servant find favor in your sight." Then the woman went to her quarters, ate and drank with her husband, and her countenance was sad no longer. They rose early in the morning and worshipped before the Lord. Then they went back to their house at Ramah. Elkanah knew his wife Hannah, wink, wink, and the Lord remembered her. In due time, Hannah conceived and bore a son. She named him Samuel, for she said, "I have asked him of the Lord." The man Elkanah and all his household went up to offer to the Lord the yearly sacrifice and to pay his vow. But Hannah did not go up, for she said to her husband, "As soon as the child is weaned, I will bring him, that he may appear in the presence of the Lord and remain there forever. I will offer him as a Nazirite for all time." Her husband Elkanah said to her, "Do what seems best to you. Wait until you have weaned him. Only may the Lord establish his word." So the woman remained and nursed her son until she weaned him. When she had weaned him, she took him up with her, along with a 3-year-old bull, an ephah of flour, and a skin of wine. She brought him to the house of the Lord at Shiloh, and the child was young. Then they slaughtered the bull, and they brought the child to Eli. And she said, "O my Lord, as you live, my Lord, I am the woman who is standing here in your presence, praying to the Lord. For this child I prayed, and the Lord has granted me the petition that I have made to him. Therefore I have lent him to the Lord as long as he lives. He is given to the Lord." She left him there for the Lord. Whew. Right? So what stands out to you in this story? What did you hear?
What stands out with me is, my goodness, leaving that child there.
Yeah.
Going home. That would have been so devastating.
Yes, leaving that child there, so devastating. Agree. Anything else? Yes? How? Oh, Eli. She wonders how Eli felt about getting a tiny baby, right? What am I? Well, the child was weaned. I don't know what. Do you have a guess on what that means on how old the child would have been? At least 3, probably 3. Yeah, but still, I don't know if any of you have known any 3-year-olds. They're the worst. Anything else stand out? Yes.
She waited so long to have a child and then she gave it up.
Yeah, she waited so long to have a child and gave it up.
I was surprised at how quick Eli judged and assumed she was drunk.
Amen. She was surprised at how quick Eli judged her and assumed she was drunk. Yes. She literally left the child. It's Samuel who, do you remember the story where Samuel's sleeping and then hears the Lord and goes to Eli and says, "What do you want?" And it's the Lord calling Eli. Yeah, he lived with Eli. Yeah.
I didn't like the beginning where it said that the Lord had closed her.
I don't like that either. She doesn't like the beginning where it said the Lord had closed her womb. I hope that that all of you in this room know God well enough to know that that's not how God would work. Yes, how God works. Yes, I would prefer not to attribute pregnancy trouble or any tragedy, honestly, to God. Yeah.
So 1 year ago, I put notes in my Bible from all my Word for Women. Well, it was December 4th, Pastor Pagan. We sang the song Hannah's Prayer of Praise, and I have handwritten notes, God works for equality.
God works for equality. Yeah, she has in her notes in her Bible. Beautiful. So what I find so real and honest about this story is about Hannah's journey to motherhood is how emotional it is. We don't get to the emotion very much in these stories. So we learn of her deep sadness and longing. Her husband says to her, "Hannah, why do you weep? Why is your heart so sad?" And we learn of her distress and anxiety at the horrendous way Peninnah treated her. Not okay, right? And probably at some of the shame that she had to have been feeling. Yeah? And then we see her great joy and gratitude for the child that she prayed so fervently for. This story is so emotional and real and I think honest. I think those of us in this room can agree that it's honest to what being a person, being a mother is like, right? So I know that not all pregnancy journeys include sadness. I know that. But I think it's safe to say that every woman, including all of us in this room, that we find the idea of motherhood to be emotional. So whether you are a person that chose not to have children and never did, or if you're a person who decided not to have children and did anyway, or if you're someone who wanted to have children and never could, or had trouble doing so, or if you're somebody who has experienced miscarriage or pregnancy loss, or someone who has decided to adopt, or for someone for whom pregnancy always came easy. Being a mother, or not, is a tender, vulnerable, beautiful thing. And so while being a mother and having children is something that many women experience, so much so that it's reduced in the Bible to a phrase as simple as, she became pregnant and gave birth. We know that it's really so much more than that, right? And we don't need to look further than this room to add some life to what becoming a mother really means and to demonstrate how tender it really is. So I know that we're still getting to know each other a little bit, but I am hopeful that we've built enough trust for me to invite some vulnerability today. My hope is that by sharing some of our own stories of pregnancy, childbirth, and motherhood, we can add some life and humanity to how we experience the story of Jesus' birth this year. So I've asked some of you to help me today. And before I call them up, I want to acknowledge the honor it is that these people have agreed to share their stories with you. I know that we all have different levels of comfort on what we're willing to share about ourselves with others. These people did say yes after all, but still, for me, it's a big deal, right? It's a big deal that they've agreed to say yes, and I find it courageous when somebody shares their story and opens their heart. So before I come up, these four come up, I want to just say I am so thankful and honored that you've agreed. So I'd like to invite Lynn and Gwen and Pam and Kay to come forward. We're going to have a bit of a panel and share some stories of pregnancy, childbirth, and motherhood. Are you surprised to see each other? I didn't tell you. Well, so I sent a little list of questions to the four of them earlier this week, and so we're going to go through them and we'll see what comes out. We have 20-ish minutes. So there you go. Okay, Lynn. Okay, thank you. Okay, so my first question or invitation is to share a bit about your journey to motherhood. The, who, what, where, when, why. Don't care about how. Just kidding. I care about Just kidding.
All right. Well, I definitely didn't want to be first, but here I go.
Well, you can defer.
No, it's good. Anyway, I'm Pam, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and so that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be like my mom, and probably a generational thing, perhaps, but I just always wanted to be a mom, and so when I was 25, my husband and I said, we're ready to start our family. I mean, we already had a family, the two of us, but we wanted to add to our family. So we have 4 children, and one unusual thing about our family is that each child was born in a different country.
Oh.
My husband worked for Hewlett-Packard, and he is a child of missionaries, so he thinks it's normal to just go live in a different country. So when he was working for HP, he thought, I wonder where else we could live besides just right here. So first we went to the Netherlands, and our oldest child was born there, and it was a very pro-natural birth, and it was a wonderful experience. So that was our first child. And then he was transferred to Hong Kong. And so then we had our second child in Hong Kong, and that was very interesting because in the Chinese culture, you really want your child to be born on an auspicious day, on a lucky day. Oh. And so not a natural childbirth, but a child born on a lucky day. So when the stars were aligned, they would schedule C-sections every 15 minutes, and they would get all those babies born on that special day as quickly as they could.
That's
and luckily, my child was born on an unlucky day. And so I got a lot of attention in the maternity wing, so that worked out just well.
Wow.
Then we moved back to the U.S., and we thought, we would really like another child. So we had a daughter in California. And that was great. That's the only birth where my mom was able to attend. I mean, she wasn't in the room with me, but she was just down the road. And that was a great birth as well. And then we thought 3 kids, that's perfect. And then we moved to Germany. And lo and behold, an angel of the Lord said, you shall have another child. So anyway, our last child was born in Germany. So it was definitely, I wanted to be a mom, and God blessed me 4 times, but I never would have dreamed that they would all be born in very different places.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kay, and all my friends know I talk way too much. So I brought notes because I'm old. I'm way older than everybody else. So I brought some notes so I could try to keep it short. So anyway, unlike you, I was not married. I was 16 years old. I was a junior in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, a junior in high school, and I got pregnant just by a boyfriend. I mean, this is our motto. We love sex, we love wine, we're the class of 69. I mean, in those days, people just had sex to have sex. I mean, I'm sorry. It definitely wasn't immaculate conception. And I didn't even really I liked the guy, but that was about it because everybody just had sex. So, basically first time out, I got pregnant. That's the first one. And then I did have 2 miscarriages between, and then I had a daughter 5 years later who died.
Oh,
so
okay.
Thank God I had the first one and I was 17, so I was a lot older when I had him.
Okay. I have a boring life, and I'm Gwen, and I have 2 kids, and I'm the oldest of 5 daughters, and so, I was always a leader, but I was not in having kids. My two of my younger sisters had a baby before I did, and so I thought, this is great. I'll have, people to teach me everything that's going on. When we got pregnant with our first, it was Valentine's Day when we found out. It was so romantic. We can have a baby right before Christmas, and then about a month later, I had a miscarriage. Actually, I found out at the doctor that I would have one, and then it happened. And, I think when you read all the pregnancy books and you think you can plan things and you're trying to figure out when your baby should be born, either the hospital wants it born on a certain day or whatever, you feel like you're in control, but having that miscarriage just made me realize I wasn't in control at all. Mm-hmm. And so it just really helped me to just trust God and figure out and realize that what was going to happen was going to happen. So we did get pregnant, a little while later, had Ryan, and when he was, a toddler, got pregnant again, and I had a second miscarriage. Mm-hmm. And I was like, no, wait, I don't want to keep doing this. The gift in that one was that it happened right before I was going on a church women's retreat. And I was just able to spend the weekend. My mom and dad took care of Ryan, and I was able to spend the weekend with a group of women that were just wonderful. I don't think I even hardly told anyone. Mm-hmm. So, and then Ashley was born, a little while later. So they're just a gift for sure, and I can't take any credit.
Thank you, Gwen.
Hi, I'm Lynn, and it was 38 years ago, like right about now, that I found out that I was the mother of a 1-year-old baby, or a 1 month old, 1 month old baby boy who was born in Korea. We had fertility issues, and he didn't arrive into our arms until February, but we found out before Christmas, and that was the best Christmas present ever. That was 38 years ago. Yeah, I was the one that played with baby dolls, not Barbie dolls. Now, I had one Barbie doll. It was a gift. All of my dolls were baby dolls, so it just was something. It was just going to be how it was with me. I just was going to be a mother, and so it was difficult going through infertility issues. And but I don't know. But here we are. I'm a proud mom.
There we go. What 2 or 3 things do you remember most about your birth story, adoption story? Some of those like interesting details that stick with you.
Okay, I was surprised how much, when I think back on it now, okay, it's really true that when people say, oh, yeah, having a baby, physically having a baby, like really hurts, but you won't remember the pain afterward because you have this little baby. I don't know to that. That just doesn't mean anything to me. But when I think about what Tom and I went through in order to adopt, it was a different kind of pain, I guess. I mean, we went through lots of classes and panels, and we went through a lot. Yeah. And it wasn't until I was thinking about it yesterday, I'm like, oh, I guess we did go through a lot, but I kind of forgot all of that too. So the same kind of, the same kind of thing. And the weird things that people say to you, whether, I know it's like a thing. People want to touch you when you're pregnant. I promise I would never do that. But people ask you really odd things when you have. When I had my little Korean baby boy, and they're just odd. Oh. You couldn't have children of your own? Oh, yes, I stole this child. I'm just walking around Cub with, I was so nice, but afterward I would just, and of course, and then all of the beautiful people who would, I have a little granddaughter from Korea, right? And then they'd like to tell me their stories, and that, the sweet along with the kind of not so sweet.
Thank you, Lynn.
My only kind of interesting story is that I tried to, just take more ownership of going through labor the first time, pain management. I was not really an advocate for natural childbirth. So the first time they gave me something to take the edge off, which took the edge off until it didn't, which was pretty short time. And so the second baby, I was like, okay, I am having an epidural. Get it ordered. It's all good. Ashley decided she was not waiting. So just after she was born, there was a knock on the door, and the epidural team said, we're here.
Oh.
Okay, so because I was 16, I wasn't really thrilled. So my best friend at the time called Lutheran Social Services to find out how you go about getting a pregnancy test, and she told them she was the pregnant one, of course, because I wasn't going to tell them I was pregnant. So at 7 months, I went to the OBGYN for the first time for a pregnancy test. And I'll never forget, Dr. Orr said to me, I don't think we need to test. He said, have you not felt the baby move? And I said, I was really hopeful it was a tumor that was just kind of moving around. I really was. I was hoping for a tumor.
Yeah.
So anyway, so he said, no, you're definitely pregnant. Okay. So that was the first thing. So then I had to go home and tell my mother. Now, during the 68, we wore those smock dresses, so they were huge. Really, she had no clue. Nobody knew I was pregnant.
Wow.
Nobody. So my mother was instantly furious because my father had left her a couple years sooner. And we hadn't seen my dad since he left because he did not want to be around my mom. He left her for another woman. So my mother immediately called my father and told him it was all his fault because he had left his family. I didn't remember him being there when he had sex, but she thought he was. But it was all his fault. Anyway, so then I had to see him, so he took me out for lunch, and when he found I was 7 months pregnant, he said, this is ridiculous because we could have taken care of this.
Oh.
Well, I'm probably the biggest proponent, as my friends know, I'm anti-abortion. There are some circumstances, don't get me wrong, but for I don't believe in it as birth control. Okay. So anyway, so I said, a little late, you know. So anyway, so then I went to the hospital. I remember my mother dropping me off at the door of the hospital because she didn't want to be there. She didn't think she could stand to be in the room with me. So I went into the hospital by myself, checked in, and had the baby. It took from 5 o'clock in the morning until just about 6 o'clock in the evening. I finally had him, and then the next morning, because my mother never told anyone because she was so ashamed. So the next morning she calls, and she's just sobbing. I mean, I couldn't even understand, but she says, my daddy's here, who is my Papa Joe. And she said, he's bringing you something. And she hung up, and I thought, what do you mean your dad's here? Papa Joe's here. So anyway, Papa Joe comes to the hospital. He planned a surprise, unexpected visit to my mother. And he was the only person, I remember this vividly, he was the only person that was happy. He stood in front of that window and tap on the glass and go, that's my great-grandson, that's my great-grandson, because he was the first great-grandchild. So he was happy for me, but the reason my mother was crying so hard is she had gotten papers from the state of South Dakota that were to be delivered to me because my father was petitioning to take the child away.
Oh.
So at the hospital, my son Donald was taken away from me, and my pediatrician and gynecologist called the state of South Dakota and said she's nursing this baby. She needs to have this baby with her. So they did allow me to have the child, have my son with me. I had to go into a room with 2 nurses so I wouldn't run away, I guess. Like, I don't know where I would have gone. But I had to be in a room with 2 nurses at all times so I wouldn't take off with him. And then they also petitioned the state to allow me to take him home until we went to court 2 weeks later.
Wow. Wow. Gosh, that's a lot. Thank you, Kay.
I'm speechless. What to say? All right. Well, I just have one quick reflection, which is, it just reinforces how every story is so unique and so, you try to say, oh, she's a mom, but there's so much involved. And, I had 4 children, but one of my daughters had infertility problems and a sister-in-law, and so I know the pain of wanting to be a mom and not. But just one quick story about my last pregnancy, which was in Germany, and their system is you have your doctor who does all the prenatal care, and then there is a team of obstetricians in the hospital, and they do all the deliveries. So you really don't know who you're going to have do the actual delivery. But I knew some other women who were pregnant in Germany, and they were like, don't worry, they're all really good, they're so talented, and they all speak English. They all speak English. So we go to the hospital, we knock on the door, we go in, and my husband and I are there, and the doctor comes in to meet us, and so I say, sprechen Sie English? Oh, nein. Oh, nein. I was like, oh, nein. I was like, and anyway, so then someone helped us go through the paperwork, and my husband's German was better than mine, so he was doing it. And then the doctor left, and my husband, who's very optimistic, he turns to me and he goes, we're going to get a free German lesson.
Oh, my God.
Like, that wasn't my plan for today.
Oh, my God. That's too good.
Anyway, that's it.
Oh, that's so funny. Okay, all right. So, what role did your faith or relationship with God play in your journey, and how has your faith changed?
Well, I think about saying the creed. I know we don't say the creed every week now, but we used to say the creed, whether it was the Apostles' Creed or the Nicene Creed, and every day that, God is the creator of everything, seen and unseen. And so I just trusted that God was going to take care of me, God was going to take care of my baby. I was constantly praying for the health of my children, and also knowing that God would provide. And, however my child was, however my family turned out, God was the one who provided the children, blessed me with the children, and I just always thought they were such a blessing. And on those few days when my 2-year-old or another 2-year-old made my life a bit stressful, I also thought about how God, this is a whole process, that child development and all that. And I also thought my mom, who had 5 children, I thought, this is possible to live through toddlerhood. And, with the strength that God would give me and, the support of other women and my own mom, that, it is a blessing to be a mom. And, I mean, my children are my greatest treasure besides my Lord. So it's a wonderful thing for my faith to have become a mom.
Thank you, Pam.
Well, as all my friends know, my faith is really strong. And I've probably been just about every religion under the sun, other than atheist and Jewish. But I found out years later that my maternal grandmother was Jewish.
Oh.
So truly, I am Jewish.
There you go.
But anyway, I would say my faith has always been strong. I can remember, because really at 16, did I want to keep this child? I didn't think so. But after meeting with my Catholic gynecologist, he said, if you give this child away, you will never know this child. You will never have a child. And so he really convinced me I should keep this child. And then, as everybody knows, I'm really, now that I've decided to keep this child, nobody's taking this child away. I don't care if the state comes after me. And in the end, it was such a blessing because of the fact I had 2 miscarriages and lost my daughter. But, I just prayed that God would be with us and help us through this. And I really believed he was there with me in court, because the state ruled that the baby would be taken away. But then they said you can keep the baby under certain circumstances. So we had a lot of things I had to do, and we had to do. We had to get married. That was one of the court demanded we got married. But anyway, so it was just a weird, long process. But I knew God was with me. He always has been, always will be.
Thank you, Kay.
I think it was a gift having those miscarriages and realizing that I really didn't control so many things. And that just really had an impact on my faith as the kids grew up. And, my husband would be really sweet. And when they did something good, he'd say, you're such a great mom. You did a great job. And I'd always say, don't say that, because that means when they do something awful, which they also did, that it's going to be my fault too. So right away I decided to give that part up. Just realizing that I can do my part, and I do as much as I can, but really it's God that loves them even more than me. Just gave me really a sense of peace. When Ryan was in kindergarten, I found a group of moms to pray with, and I still do that once a week, praying for the kids, and I just feel like that's a way of continuing to parent them, even when they're not around me every day. So, and I also realized that I needed other moms, other women, sisters around me, just to help me in my parenting journey as well. That was really important.
Thank you, Gwen.
Well, I am lucky to be married to a very good prayer. He's a very good prayer. We don't necessarily pray out loud, but he's always praying. I know he is, and it helps to have support. And I know my family was very supportive too, and I always trusted. I'm not exactly sure why I always trusted. I don't know that I named it at the time, but I just trusted God that this is the way it was supposed to be. This is the way it's going to be. And it was always, well, what are we going to do now? So, we can't biologically have kids. Okay, so now what do we do? And it was just a natural thing. And I can't help but think that was my faith. That was just trusting God had a plan, and we'll figure it out.
I'm going to skip the next question because we're running out of time, but I really do want to ask. Thinking back to the time right before you became a mother, what is one feeling you remember having?
Okay, so 38 years ago, when I actually really knew that I was going to have a baby. I mean, the whole year before we had been prepping for it, but we still didn't know we were going to have a baby. But once we got that picture, and I saw that picture, was just I was not nervous at all. I don't know. Maybe it was because I was 30 years old. I wasn't a young, I was just like, oh my goodness. I was so excited I was calm and I was ready and yeah. So yeah, no butterflies, no nothing, just all good, peaceful feelings. Yeah.
Thank you.
I was a little bit similar. I was 34, and one of my colleagues had had her baby early and had to leave work suddenly. So I stopped working a week before Ryan's due date, and then he took another 6 days. So I was waiting. So I was impatient for him, and yeah, and I didn't want to think about labor. So I just kind of I didn't exactly.
Okay, well, I guess deep down, I mean, I knew my life was going to change dramatically. I had been accepted at the University of Wisconsin. I was going to be a psychiatrist. I mean, I was a straight A student. You know, life was perfect. That's what made my dad so mad, because he knew my life was going to be different. And I also knew I was going to be basically alone. The man I was marrying was already an alcoholic. I mean, he was 18 years old. He was already an alcoholic. And my parents, I could not live with my mother. I didn't speak to my father, so I knew it was like, you're going to do this all on your own, so good luck, you know. And really, my son has probably been the one constant in my life, because as my friends know, marriage hasn't been good to me, or I wasn't good to marriage. So my son has been my constant. So, but the feeling was like, oh, dang.
I guess I had mixed feelings. I mean, I had wanted to be a mom since I was a little girl, and so this was, finally happening, my dream come true to have a baby. So I was super, super excited. I was worried about labor because you never know. It's like kind of this mystery. And your life will never be the same. When you have a child, you change. You change at the core of who you are, and you pour yourself into your children. I have told my kids, I would do anything for you guys. I mean, I would give an arm or a leg, and good thing I only have 4 kids, because there you go. I'd be sitting in a chair. At least I could keep my head, But anyway, so I was super, super excited, but I had anxiety about what was going to happen, because it's so different. But, day by day, God's light is a lamp as we take each step. As each day comes, he gives us the strength that we need to deal with things that we are surprised that come along.
Thank you all so, so much. Your stories are beautiful and tender and vulnerable, and I thank you so much for that. I don't know if I can speak for everybody, but I probably can, in that I saw myself in different ways in each of your stories, and that matters to me. So thank you, and I hope it matters to all of you as well. So you can go back to your seats. Michelle, do we have any prayer requests? Okay. So in your small groups today, I hope that you will continue sharing stories with each other, and that within the context of all of that and all that we've heard today, I hope that you experience Mary's story, the story of Jesus' birth, in a way that allows all the emotions of that moment to come to life for you, so that we can see in a new way the tender, vulnerable, beautiful thing that the story of Christmas really is. God of grace, as we prepare to celebrate the birth of Jesus, open our hearts to receive him anew. May Christ's presence transform us, filling us with hope, peace, and joy that we may share with the world. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen. Thank you all. Have a great small group.